The sun was blazing over downtown Dallas as executives gathered on the rooftop helipad of Blake Aeronautics. The company's sleek black helicopter sat ready, rotors still, reflecting wealth and power. Investors chatted confidently while assistants checked schedules. CEO Victoria Blake stood at the center, poised and impatient, eager to leave for a critical deal meeting. Suddenly, the pilot climbed out of the cockpit, his face tense. He announced that the flight control system wasn't responding. The mood shifted instantly. Time was money, and every delay felt unacceptable in a place where control was everything. Technicians rushed forward, tapping tablets and arguing over diagnostics, but no solution appeared. Victoria's irritation grew with every passing minute. Her sharp eyes scanned the rooftop and landed on a janitor quietly sweeping near the edge. It was Ethan Cole, a 38-year-old single father known for keeping his head down and working late shifts. With a mocking smile, Victoria spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Fix this helicopter, and I'll kiss you right now." Laughter erupted. Some executives smirked, others looked away, uncomfortable with the humiliation unfolding. Ethan froze for a moment, the broom still in his hands. The laughter echoed painfully, reminding him how invisible he had become since life had forced him into survival mode. Years earlier, he had worn a different uniform, working as a military aircraft technician and aerospace engineer. But after his wife's sudden death, raising his young son alone mattered more than prestige. He lowered his eyes briefly, then looked at the helicopter again. The exposed panel caught his attention. His expression changed, not offended but focused. He set the broom aside and walked toward the helicopter with calm determination. "If you want it fixed," he said evenly, his voice cutting through the laughter, "give me 10 minutes. The rooftop fell quiet. Victoria raised an eyebrow, amused and skeptical, but desperation outweighed pride. She waved her hand dismissively. "Fine," she said. "Go ahead." Ethan climbed into the cockpit, scanning the control system with trained precision, his hands moving instinctively as years of experience resurfaced. As minutes passed, whispers replaced laughter. Ethan worked efficiently, bypassing the diagnostic screen and accessing the relay housing directly. He identified a misaligned flight control relay caused by recent maintenance oversight. With steady hands, he recalibrated the system, rerouted power flow, and reset the control sequence. Inside the helicopter, warning lights flickered, then disappeared. On the rooftop, the investors watched in growing disbelief. The sound of the rotor slowly powering up broke the silence, signaling that something extraordinary was about to happen, and no one was laughing anymore. The helicopter's rotors spun steadily, the once blinking warning lights now dark and silent. The pilot stared at the control panel, then slowly looked back at Ethan, disbelief written across his face. Engineers rushed forward, running final system checks, only to confirm what no one expected: the helicopter was fully operational. A heavy silence fell over the rooftop. The laughter from earlier felt distant and embarrassing. Victoria Blake stood frozen, her confident posture faltering as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. Every eye shifted from the aircraft to the janitor who had just done the impossible. Ethan climbed down from the cockpit and wiped grease from his hands with a rag. "Faulty relay alignment," he said calmly. "It happens when maintenance skips a recalibration step." His tone was professional, not smug. Investors exchanged glances, some nodding in quiet respect. Victoria's face flushed, her earlier joke replaying painfully in her mind. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. For the first time in years, she felt small, exposed by her own arrogance and the silent dignity of the man she had mocked. Later that afternoon, Victoria requested Ethan's presence in her office. The atmosphere was entirely different. No sarcasm, no audience. She listened as Ethan explained his background: years as a military aircraft technician, later an aerospace engineer, and finally a single father forced to choose stability over status after losing his wife. His story unsettled her. She realized how easily talent could be hidden behind circumstance, and how quickly power could blind someone to humanity. Without hesitation, she offered him a senior engineering position, along with compensation that could change his life. Ethan considered the offer carefully. "I'll accept," he said at last, "but only if you apologize publicly." Victoria hesitated, then nodded. That evening she addressed the entire staff on the rooftop. She admitted her mistake, acknowledged her disrespect, and praised Ethan's skill and integrity. The applause that followed was genuine, heavy with meaning. Ethan stood quietly, not seeking attention, but accepting accountability as something more valuable than praise. In that moment, respect replaced mockery and dignity reclaimed its place. Weeks later, Ethan picked up his young son from school in a company car, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He wasn't just returning to his profession, he was reclaiming his identity. Back at Blake Aeronautics, conversations changed. People listened more, judged less, and remembered the lesson learned on the rooftop. Power could humiliate, but humility could elevate. And sometimes, the person holding the greatest skill is the one sweeping quietly in the background, waiting for the moment when truth reveals itself. The weeks that followed quietly transformed Blake Aeronautics. Ethan stepped into his new role without arrogance, earning respect through consistency rather than title. Engineers twice his rank listened carefully when he spoke, surprised by how deeply he understood systems they only knew in theory. Victoria watched from a distance, noticing how the team responded to him, not with fear or flattery but trust. Meetings became calmer, more collaborative. The culture she had unknowingly poisoned with pressure and ego began to shift. Ethan never mentioned the rooftop incident, but its lesson lingered in every interaction. At home, life changed in smaller but more meaningful ways. Ethan's son Noah, just 9 years old, noticed the difference immediately. His father smiled more, slept better, and no longer came home exhausted from double shifts. When Ethan helped with homework, he explained science with excitement, not regret. One evening, Noah asked, "Dad, were you always this smart?" Ethan laughed softly and hugged him. "I was always this curious," he replied. For the first time since his mother's passing, the house felt less like survival and more like a future. Victoria, meanwhile, carried the weight of her public apology longer than she expected. The moment replayed in her mind at night, not as humiliation but as clarity. She began asking questions she had never asked before. Who cleaned the offices after midnight? Who fixed problems no one noticed? She started greeting employees by name, listening instead of commanding. Some thought it was temporary guilt. It was. Ethan's quiet dignity had confronted her with a truth no boardroom ever had. Leadership without respect was just authority waiting to fail. One afternoon, the company faced another crisis, a last-minute systems failure before a major defense demo. Panic threatened to return, but Ethan stepped forward calmly, delegating tasks, stabilizing systems, and guiding the team through recovery. This time, no one laughed. No one doubted. Victoria watched as he led without ego, crediting the team instead of himself. The demo succeeded. Applause filled the room, not forced but earned. Ethan simply nodded and returned to work, his satisfaction coming from function, not applause. Months later, Blake Aeronautics was recognized not just for innovation but for culture. Ethan declined interviews and spotlight offers, choosing instead to mentor younger engineers quietly. On the rooftop where he had once been mocked, he stood with Noah, watching a helicopter lift smoothly into the sky. "That's what you do, right?" Noah asked. Ethan smiled. "I fix things," he said. And in that moment, it was clear he meant more than machines. He fixed broken assumptions, silent pride, and a future that had once nearly passed him by.